Before I get started, I want to say something. Here I am today speaking for over a couple hundred people about the Ag Day in Ames, Iowa, and I'm a town kid. I did grow up in town. My dad was in the feed industry, but I grew up in town. But I knew at about age 10 or 12, somewhere in there, my parents told me that I wanted a career in agriculture. And to do that, my dad said I should work on a farm. So I approached a guy named Valley Pellet, who was in our church, and I said I wanted to work for your farm. And my first job was walking beans, which graduated to putting up hay, which graduated to working on the Pellet farm. And Mr. Pellet taught me a lot about agriculture, but the important thing that he taught me was not how to make fence or bale hay or walk beans, but he taught me how to think. And so I have taken a lot of time in my life to mentor other people and teach them how to think. And I appreciate so much people that were mentoring me, and I hope that all of you are mentoring somebody else in whatever industry you're with. I'd love to have Mr. Pellet here today, but he's no longer with us. But somebody who was on that farm, who also was an important mentor, somebody with no post-high school education, but one of the smartest people in agriculture I ever met, is with us today, and I'd like you to welcome with me Leonard and Dot Kinney from Atlantic, Iowa, the hired man on the farm where I grew up. Thank you for allowing me to do that. In 1980, when Iowa State University Ag Dean Lee Colmer handed me my ag diploma, the world of agriculture was quite different than it is today. Back then, agriculture was really more about how much of everything we could throw at producing our ag and food. Precision ag was something that had not been thought about or not been invented. It did not exist, and crop inputs were used much, much more inexactly than they are today. Yes, back in the early 80s, farms were expanding and farmers were expanding. Every farm seemed to have hogs and cattle, mostly on dirt or mud, and most farms did have corn and soybeans. Bankers used to say back then that hogs paid the bills. Land values remained fairly constant. If you look back at about 1980, Iowa land values would have been in anywhere from $1,000 to maybe $2,000 an acre, maybe a little bit higher in some areas, but they stayed fairly constant. A tractor with a cab and a radio was considered a luxury, and a farmer owned his pickup, I looked this up, 8 to 11 years in between trades. That's what farmers knew then, so that's how we farmed then. Today, capital-intensive livestock production is highly, highly specialized and concentrated to fewer and fewer farms. We know this when we drive across the countryside and we see all these long, narrow, rectangular buildings full of hogs, livestock, or now even cattle. The livestock moved from the unpredictable, harsh conditions outside to the more predictable and easy environment inside. Farm equipment switched from horses to horsepower over 100 years ago in a really short period of time. And today, tractors, combines, planters, and sprayers barely fit on the same roads and bridges that were designed for a different era. When I was young, there was no internet, there was no web, there were no GPS satellites, there were no drones, no softwares, and not everybody had a phone in their pocket. This might be hard for you students to understand. Most houses had one phone on the wall, an ugly color, baby blue, yellow, pink. It had a long, stretchy, curly cord, so your older sister could get on the phone with her boyfriend, stretch it clear to the bathroom, and for 2 hours, everybody would duck under it in the kitchen. That's what we had then. Amazon was an unexplored jungle in South America. Apple was merely a tree fruit. The cloud was a big mass of condensed water vapor floating high up in the atmosphere that we would look at. There were no laptops, there were no iPads, and apps were something you ordered pre-meal at Aunt Maud's. Soil maps were black and white, they were non-interactive. That was then. But hang on, folks. Agriculture and food production is changing as I speak right here. The future of agriculture is not about blindly throwing increasingly amounts of expensive and precious resources at our food, fiber, and now, of course, fuel production. The future of agriculture and all of the production is more than bigger combines, bigger tractors, bigger sprayers, bigger and better livestock buildings, more expensive fertilizers, and GMO seeds. The future of agriculture is also borderless and it's global. In 2050, some futurists say that we're going to have to feed 9 billion people, not the 7 billion that we feed today. Some predict that 25% of those 9 billion people are going to be 30 or under, many of them living in corruptly governed third world countries with falling GDPs. That to me means a lot of hunger. But that also sounds like a perfect place for American-style capitalism, innovation, ingenuity to tackle food and ag changes. But then wait. In that same research, you can do what I did and dig into this. Others are saying there's going to be 6.5 billion people in the world in 2050. Due to a falling birth rate, because we have a lower global birth rate going on, an increase in global poverty, which usually pulls down the birth rate, and another global pandemic or two, which will thin the human herd fairly cruelly and affect the global population. So is it 9 billion or is it 6.5 billion? How do we effectively, in agriculture, retool global agriculture if the target market is as varied as 9 billion or 6.5 billion? When to retool that market is going to require a lot of capital, a lot of innovation, a lot of change practices. With such a widespread market, how do we do that? Well, it really tells me that this transition is not going to be for the faint of heart, people that can't make decisions, or technology that simply rests on the way we've always done it. Just last week, I was in Africa, and I can testify right now that in 2024, way too many people are still going to bed hungry, and of course, those same people are going to wake up tomorrow even more hungry. Agriculture must be retooled, reinvented, recapitalized, and re-engineered, no matter if we have a target of 6.5 billion or 9 billion people. Changes and disruption will come to the way we raise our crops, grow our food, and the infrastructure that allows us to do so. Many of the companies that are sponsoring this breakfast are involved in those changes right now, and we're pretty lucky to have that happening here in Ames. But feeding 6.5 or 9 billion is really not my worry. I'm 66, it's just not my worry. It's the worry of the millennials in this room, especially so those sitting right at this table from Iowa State, from the entrepreneurship programs. It's really more their worry, so I hope you guys are paying attention. Did you know today that 800 million people worldwide suffer from serious levels of hunger? I saw some of that hunger just 10 days ago in the slums of Soweto on the edges of Johannesburg or in rural villages scattered across rural Namibia. But even if we were to just instantly take the easy way out, it would seem, and grow more food and have government subsidize all that food, by 2030, even under that model, I predict there'd still be 650 million people that would suffer from some type of undernourishment. 21,000 people will die today from something related to undernourishment. 21,000. Okay? We need entrepreneurial minds and innovative minds to solve this tragic and enormous problem. Do you know how many people get sick today and will get sick tomorrow or die from eating genetically modified foods? None. Not one single person will die from GMO foods. But 1,000 people are going to die before 9 o'clock in this world because they don't have enough food. You surely know that GMO products are banned in Europe. I assume you've probably read that or heard that. You can't get anything GMO in Europe. But you might not know that Africa's main ag trading partner is Europe, which really means by default, GMO technology is banned by default on the thirsty and hungry continent of Africa. Well, ag research, a lot of science, and piles of cash cannot overcome human stupidity. But science, innovation, and technology can solve hunger. I look at it this way. While Europeans are sitting there sipping non-GMO white wine and nibbling on organic cheeses, folks in Africa are starving from lack of science-based technology in their country. Is this a modern-day version of Europeans telling hungry Africans to eat cake? Possibly. Agriculture needs sound science, focused research, investment in land-grant research universities such as Iowa State. We need public and private partnerships. That's where many people in this room come in, public and private partnerships. And yes, we need good old-fashioned capitalism to solve the vexing problems of efficiently producing more food and optimizing our agricultural systems. What we don't need are more food alarmists, TikTok influencers who trot out made-up, tired, worn-out, non-science-based arguments about GMOs, CRISPR technology, and biological-based natural crop solutions. Nonsensical fake arguments, unfortunately, create unnecessary roadblocks to solving the vexing ag and food problems around the world. Well, what will these coming technologies look like? Oh, that was a clap. Was that from you, Wendy? Okay. I thought you were still clapping about me raising money for Iowa State. I wasn't sure. Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, if Larissa Holtmeyer-Jones was here, she would have been going woo-woo in the back of the room, trust me. But let's take a very high-level peek at what's coming. And many of you business folks in here are going to know this. Just around the corner, and in some places already being enlisted, are sophisticated tree fruit and vegetable picking robots that work 24 hours a day using artificial intelligence, color and size recognition technology, guided by monitoring drones flying overhead, managing the entire process, using even more artificial technology to bring in our fruits and our vegetables quicker, faster, more efficiently, and eliminating waste. Herd management drones will fly over sprawling ranches and feedlots night and day, monitoring how animals walk and how they eat, sending signals of sickness and disease to a veterinarian for an in-field GPS pinpointed house call. All tractors, not some, all tractors will be self-driven and paired with autonomous semis or wagons that deliver the loaded grain right from the combine to the field, the alcohol plant, the bin site, automatically unload it and return to the field for another trip, safer than humans can drive those tractors today. Or at least safer, Leonard would say, than I drove them in the early 70s, I'm sure. We will have more things like temperature and moisture monitors. They will automatically operate solar and irrigation systems around the farm, and we will also have artificial intelligence that will close gates in underground farm field tiles, preserving water when artificial intelligence is telling us that a drought is headed our way. Isn't that interesting? We will have more precision agriculture, which will hold down production costs, reduce carbon footprints, save on human toil, and again, operate equipment safer than humans can. In the works now, and really available today, from my friend Haven Baker, who he and a few others own a company called Pairwise in the Carolinas, are self-peeling potatoes whose skins simply dissolve away when you boil them. Oh boy, McDonald's is happy. But McDonald's drove that technology. Isn't that interesting how one company can drive technology change like that? Some people might say it's going to put people out of jobs, but when we have an artificial labor rate of $20 an hour in California, guess what? We have to lower our costs. It's called capitalism, folks. Biotech company eGenesis has already announced for sale today gene-edited pig organs for human babies in need of transplants at birth. When I was a kid, hog money put kids through college. And now hogs are going to save human babies who need lungs, hearts, kidneys, and livers at birth. Well, pass me the bacon. Crop planting drones will soon fly over fields using bioinjection planting systems to shoot expensive seeds into the soil, eliminating any and all soil compaction, while working 24/7 no matter the conditions. Planting drones will also narrow the spacing since tires are no longer necessary to drag a $500,000 planter through a field. This alone will save on soil compaction, it'll increase crop yields, and grower profitability will be drug along with it. Seeds will be engineered only to use the seed company's proprietary nutrients and crop protection products, thus marrying together the grower's reliance on a single crop input supplier. Patents and specific equipment technologies will bind together the grower and the company, much like indentured servants, much like people are raising hogs today, almost like indentured servants. Rising ocean temperatures are going to economically incentivize companies to genetically modify fish, mussels, and even GMO seaweed to adapt and thrive at higher ocean temperatures. I look at it this way. Humans, long ago, with little to no technology, adapted to the sub-zero cold with igloos made of blocks of snow, tents made of caribou hides, and footwear made of bear skins. Man, armed with science, will not let rising or falling temperatures or a changing environment end life as we know it, no matter what they say on CNN. Man armed with science and plant genetics, DNA, will engineer a workable outcome for a changing world. I'm absolutely sure of it. I trust humans to adapt just like our forefathers did. Farmers also have 3 secret weapons at their disposal in the event of total societal and global cataclysmic collapse. Duct tape, WD-40, and a pair of pliers. As part of the transition into tomorrow's ag world, let's watch for some new novel words and phrases that are going to creep into our vocabulary. Look for things like this: algae feedstocks, desert agriculture, seawater farming, CRISPR technology, genetic modification, multiplex gene editing, gene promoters, biodome farms, cascading domino effects, ultrasonification, gene insertions, computational plant breeding, microbe-based fertility, drone application, nanotechnology, micro-tabletop bioreactors, that's a little frightening, artificial intelligence, precision ag, soil microbial inventory, home-use genetic engineering kits, data analytics, cultured meats, laboratory food, precision crops, vertical farming, bee vectoring, aeroponics, hydroponics, and a partridge in a pear tree. Automated molecular assembly techniques with plant and animal DNA and biomolecules are going to push deep into agriculture, engineering, and design, further into nano application spaces than we can even imagine today, hastening the convergence of agriculture, biology, human medicine, and digital capabilities. Does this mean that agriculture is actually going to be a part of the blind being able to see? Will agriculture be a part of the solution of the deaf being able to hear? I would not take the over-under and bet against ag in this case. I am very positive that they will come out on the right end. Are we on the cusp of dramatic genetic changes that we have brought to seeds and crops, to animals, to fish, and then to humans? I think so. Folks, we're on the cusp of broad genome engineering, widespread biomanufacturing, and new plant-based biofuels that we can't even think of. And I was going to say that before I knew that Chevron was one of our sponsors. We will develop new and better drought and salt-tolerant plants and synthetic plant genetics that reduce or eliminate disease and even start to tackle cancer by what we eat. Now, if I can eat a bag of Doritos and prevent cancer, sign me up. The ag of tomorrow is already here in many ways today. The coming changes will increasingly be dramatic, which is why these changes are going to scare the Birkenstocks off the public if we don't promote them correctly and offer them up in a positive way. Traditionalists will no doubt make up even more scary names like they have with Frankenfoods and come up with all kinds of crazy things, killer corn and killer soybeans and killer hogs and all kinds of stuff. And they'll fling them around, all while 1,000 people an hour die of some kind of a food-related illness. Let us explore an exciting ag biotech company that has a major investment right here to kind of pull this all together. This innovative company is already delivering a key component of improved crop production in a big way. Pivot Bio is that company. Everyone knows that nitrogen is a necessary component of our global food system. We all know that nitrogen fuels photosynthesis, which makes it the basis of DNA and proteins. Plants cannot grow without nitrogen. Let me repeat that. Plants cannot and will not grow without nitrogen. But when nitrogen is used incorrectly or wastefully, it's nothing more than pollution in our streams, in our lakes, in our rivers, and it creates a great big dead hypoxia zone in the Gulf of Mexico. But we need it. Did you know that synthetic nitrogen production accounts for 2% of the world's total energy consumption and 1% of the world's global CO2 emissions? It makes chemical nitrogen a perfect market to disrupt with new and improved and sustainable technology. Carson Temme and Alvin Timshire founded Pivot Bio to solve the nitrogen problem that others thought completely unsolvable. Are you listening, students? Everybody said forever, you can't do this. But two people said, let's see if we can. And they did that at a university. They did that through research. Their dream was to develop natural soil microbes that help plants fertilize themselves naturally. Think of Pivot Bio producing billions and billions of microbes that become little nitrogen factories that attach themselves to the root of the plant. They consume no energy other than through the fermentation process to make them and to ship them. So a minuscule amount of energy, but they save a tremendous amount of energy, and they do it quite naturally. Carson and Alvin and other scientists at Pivot Bio identified specific naturally occurring soil microbes and then enhanced their nitrogen capability through modification, specialty fermentation, and separation. The company now sells these specialty microbes to farmers to coat their seeds before planting. Pivot Bio microbes are already producing nitrogen symbiotically with the plant, eliminating the needs for right now 40 pounds of nitrogen per acre, soon headed to even more through more research. The Pivot Bio story is like many, many other disruptive and exciting changes coming to agriculture. New products and new methods that are more efficient, have a less negative environmental impact, and are more sustainable. We have two farmers here today that were two of the very first Pivot Bio users in the country. These are examples of progressive farming. And Steve Henry and Jeff Taylor from Nevada and Ames, who were two of the very first users here. And I didn't know they were going to be here today, so I kind of had to add that sitting over here at breakfast. Pivot Bio came to Ames and established its second largest operation far from the company founding headquarters in Berkeley, California. How cool is it to think that the $190 billion global nitrogen industry is going to be disrupted in a positive way with fingerprints all over it from Ames, Iowa? I think that's pretty cool. Why Ames? Why Pivot Bio? Ames is the center of grain production for North America, central to so many growers and potential customers and employees, good employees here in Ames. But Pivot Bio was just one small example of the many, many coming changes to agriculture that create perfect openings for Ames businesses, Iowa State University, the College of Ag, the students at Iowa State, Ames Seed Capital, the Ames Chamber of Commerce, and the Iowa State Research Park. We have right here in our backyard, a bin-busting bumper crop of creative talent in our ag students and our ag professors, led by Dean of Ag and Life Sciences, Dr. Dan Robeson, who's also with us today over here. Thanks, Dan. Keep up the good work. But to harvest this crop of opportunity, we need entrepreneurial-minded, risk-taking graduates and professors to embrace agriculture, its exciting opportunities as we live that dream. And that dream is also the dream of ISU President Wendy Winterstein, who has said many times that she wants to create this entrepreneurial intersection of teaching, learning, research, and value creation right here in Ames and across the state of Iowa. Did I say that right? You want it to be intersection or roundabout? Okay, got it. ISU Research Park tenants are also creating exciting value here in Ames. Let me give you a couple examples of other things that are going on in Ames right now. Sukup is developing new manufacturing and new energy-efficient ways to dry and store grain. The more grain we can store effectively, maybe we can knock that number down from 1,000 to 900 to 800 to even less. Kent Corp is developing new and healthier foods, seasonings, desserts, animal feeds, and all kinds of untalked about proteins from its deeply collaborative labs with Iowa State, only a few blocks in that direction. John Deere has its Global Sprayer Research Center not a mile from where I'm speaking. They could have put that thing anywhere. They put it in Ames. I think we need to pay attention to decisions like that. Dryland Genetics has developed new varieties of the most water-efficient grain in the world right here on campus, Proso millet, right here. Much of these local research park innovations are happening in part because of our interactions with Iowa State. And by the way, Iowa State's going to kick some butt tonight against South Dakota's land-grant university, so it's happening right now. But here's the hook, students, millennials. We need more. Emerging companies are screaming out for bright young entrepreneurs and creative risk-taking inventors to rearrange the ag and life sciences stepping stones as we move from yesterday to today to tomorrow. We need the millennials, yes, the millennials in this very room, to dream about what their dreams are in solving these problems and then create those solutions. We need many of you in this room to identify those companies that are going to become our tomorrow, invest in them, mentor them, and help them grow. We all can play a part in this in Ames, Iowa. The ag of today is ripe to become the ag of tomorrow, but we need these young, energetic minds, especially the Start Something minds, to take those calculated risks and start transformational companies. Let us collectively make Ames, Iowa, that welcoming place for this to happen. Let us work with Dan Culhane and his team and his various boards of directors to ensure Ames is the best place to start and grow a disruptive company for the world to go shopping at. A free economy and unbridled capitalism are why ag and food technology change is ripe to happen in the United States compared to much of the over-regulated world. A free market capitalistic system is unrivaled for quickly identifying market needs and then rounding up the necessary capital to invest in those needs. Investing money and bringing market emerging ideas together in a decentralized way is the best way for us to move forward. Not by government diktat, not by some agency to set some goal or target. It's by letting people have ideas to solve market needs, investing in them, and have a community that is willing to help those companies grow. Innovation works as risk-taking capital has a long history of delivering valuable returns to investors. Just look at Ames Seed Capital as a good example of that. If we keep capitalism at the forefront of tomorrow's ag and food needs, we're in decent shape. The ag and life sciences transition from growing more with more to growing more with less is an opportunity for all of us to embrace. Historically, most new ag technologies came from places like Iowa State, Purdue, Cornell, Wisconsin, College Station, and the like. A new set of players are bringing many of tomorrow's ag and technology discoveries to market. Those places sound quite different than those ag colleges. The new places are Berkeley, Boston, Austin, the Research Triangle Park of North Carolina. Big new discoveries for agriculture are also coming out of places like MIT, Princeton, and Johns Hopkins. It's a new day, folks. We better not miss the boat. Let us work together to keep Ames, Iowa at the forefront of the coming ag and food transition to the future. Thank you, Dan Culhane and the Ames Chamber, for letting me ramble today about food and ag and how Ames can and should be a part of the coming future.